If you clicked on this video, there's a pretty good chance that you suck at Rainbow Six Siege, or that your friend sent it to you because they think you suck, in which case you should feel very bad about yourself right now. But don't worry too much, because by the end of this video, you'll have a whole new level of confidence and insight that will make you much better at the game. You see, we can all suck sometimes. Sucking is just a relative thing based on the people you're around. If you're getting smoked by someone on the other team or playing horribly that day, then you could say that you suck compared to your normal performance standards. But if you're better than everyone else in the lobby, you're probably sitting there telling yourself that you're the best and not that you suck, even though you might be in gold. I'm a top champion player, and there's moments where I feel like I suck, so we can all suck a little in various different ways. The one thing that will help us suck less though is to stop sucking when you suck. In other words, sucking a little bit is fine, but we need to be able to cut it off at the source and start being good at the game again when we realize that we suck. The truth is, you don't suck. It's not a permanent thing, and everyone has moments where they're just bad. Whether your opponents have better aim, run operators that are your kryptonite, or are playing so fast and aggressive that you can't keep up, the solution is right here in this video. So when you suck at the game, remember this video, think of the solution, use that solution, stop sucking, and fucking win. It's really that easy. Let's start out with the basics, playing players who are just better than you mechanically speaking. Their aim and movement is too much for your little sausage fingers, you can't keep up, and you lose every gunfight to them. You're sitting there at the bottom of the team going 0-3, and your feelings are hurt and you don't know what to do. Well, if this sounds like a situation you found yourself in, don't worry, because I have the solution for you. If you're on the attacking side of things trying to deal with the defender's aggression, like those 1.5 sight monkeys that peek and swing everything, there's a few tricks to get the job done. Typically, these players have great aim and movement and are very difficult to win against in a head-to-head gunfight. The first and most simple option to beating these guys is by throwing your pride straight down the drain and playing Blackbeard. Most people actually play Blackbeard wrong though, so if you think you've tried this solution before and it hasn't worked for you, just hear me out for a second. Playing Blackbeard can be the perfect antidote for these hyperactive players because he gives you more time to react in your gunfights and puts the advantage into your favor even if your aim is a little worse. Where Blackbeard becomes completely useless though is on repels or holding angles. You essentially never want to put yourself in a position where you're standing still. It might be scary to peek the guys with a really good aim, but the confidence and peeker's advantage will make it more likely that you survive and win the gunfight. So get into the building and swing onto the defenders instead of letting them swing onto you. The more confidence in this situation, the more likely you'll be able to pull it off flawlessly, so stop telling yourself that you suck and start believing in the power that Blackbeard holds. Or instead, just continue being the little bitch boy you are and avoid the aggressive defenders entirely. This is actually a viable strategy, and it's a fresh approach to this problem that most people won't be ready for. Speaking of a fresh approach, why not take a fresh approach to your household meal times with the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. HelloFresh is great. I genuinely love what they bring to the cooking game. I've ordered it multiple times, and it's actually what got me into cooking in the first place. The simple recipes are easy to follow and made cooking much less intimidating when I first started out. Chicken and waffles!
Damn, that looks tasty.
Whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, HelloFresh has meals for every time of the day, ranging from snacks and easy lunches to the big festive gatherings during those seasonal celebrations. You can take the hassle out of your meal times by getting pre-portioned ingredients and easy to prepare recipes that are delivered right to your doorstep. I personally hate spending the time going to the grocery store, finding everything I want, and then waiting in line, but you can get around all of that with HelloFresh. Plus, right now you can use my code POGHF113166 for a special discount at streams.net/HelloFresh_Poxonlox. The link is also conveniently placed in the description for you. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring the video, and remember that believing in HelloFresh will put you on the same plane as believing in the BB Shield. It'll just change your life. But what about those avoidance tactics that I was mentioning before? Well, step one to completely ignoring those aggressive defenders is to just take your time to get out of the spawn. You could go as far as leaving your drone there in the prep phase to see where the defenders are actually spawn peeking from, and then waiting in spawn for 10 to 15 seconds before you even start to move. This will throw their timing off, and they may just give up by the time you actually leave the spawn, thinking that nobody has spawned there. Once you've done that, try to make your way to a direct entrance of the site and blast in there with as much team utility as you can and plant the bomb. Post plants are severely more attacker sided, and it will force them to retake into your utility. The more teamwork here, the better, but the best part is you can completely avoid these direct engagements and force the defenders to use utility, which is a foreign concept to people with this playstyle. So grab a Glaz, a Ying, a Ram, a Grim, a Cappy Tau, or anyone to create some chaos and hit the site directly. The best part about this is that those 1.5 crutching Warden mains are usually on the other side of the map, forgetting about the fact that they even have an ability. This direct site aggression has different looks though. You can do these smoke hits and plant the bomb, or you can gain the control in other ways depending on who you like to play. This might be a wild Amaru play straight into site, site, or using Nomad to slowly gain control and lock out those annoyingly aggressive players. When you're sucking at the game, trying out different things and different approaches can take your shit ass and make it great, and doing it confidently will make it all the more likely that it actually happens. However, there are also some nice tricks you can use against aggressive players to get the advantage in the gunfights. After all, gunfights are bound to happen and you can't avoid them forever. The first tip is to hold tight lines of sight that cover your body as much as possible. Making yourself a smaller target to hit forces them to hit absolutely disgusting shots in order to kill you, while all you have to do is pull the trigger at what you're already aiming at once you see some movement. It makes it all the more likely that you'll actually survive and maybe even get the kill. You can also achieve this by playing hard breachers and opening up longer lines of sight. By doing it this way, not only can you find better cover, but you'll have a much stronger weapon than any of the defenders. Using a weapon like Ace's AK-12 or Thermite's 5.56 will carry the gun's damage over range, meaning you'll be able to tear them down with body shots while they have to land a shot on your tiny little head. Now that we figured out how to stop sucking against aggressive defenders, let's talk about how to stop sucking against aggressive attackers. Sometimes the enemies will have an unearned confidence that carries their gun skill and blasts them into the building at record speeds, making it feel like your back's being blown out round after round without a chiropractor in sight. But you're in luck, because there's actually some great ways to stop these zero fear, no droning meatheads. The first of which is information. Echo is the strongest information operator in the game right now, with movable drones and a loadout that fits every situation. If you're losing your gunfights, bring the supernova and blast the attackers from halfway across the map. If you're still losing your gunfights, hop on the drones and get a teammate to take them instead with the help of the yokai as a distraction. Not to mention, you can also disorient them right before your teammate goes to take the fight. Having information on what the enemy is doing early in the round will help you make better decisions in the mid-round. Hopping on those default cams as the round starts to see where they spawn will make it less likely that they'll take you by surprise if you know what side of the building they're starting out from. Information is the #1 thing in this game, and the more you have from teammates and gadgets, the better. Holding angles and entrances with shotguns, though, is also great for the attackers that walk throughout the map without drones. Just make sure your back is covered and don't move to avoid making any noise that would alert the attacker as to where you are. If you're worried about a Dokkaebi, then play mute and sit on a mute jammer for an extra layer of protection. One of the best ways to deal with constant aggression, though, is traps. In these circumstances, Kapkan, Melusi, Ella, Aruni, Legion, and most importantly, Goyo are your best friends. The first ones are pretty straightforward. Place the traps on areas where it's common for attackers to come from and hope that the rushing attacker comes from here. Sitting around and playing off this utility will top it off to take them out. But if you find that you've tried these things and you're still getting smoked, then the #1 trap operator for this is Goyo. Goyo is insanely strong for stopping aggression, but only if you play him in this one very specific way. Instead of these beta Goyo canisters on the side of entrances and doorways, we're gonna plop these fuckers straight in the middle of the doorway like a medieval boiling oil trap. When the attackers then try to bust their way through any of these doorways at light speed, they're gonna be greeted by a Goyo explosion and dealt a ton of damage, making them much easier to take out later on. Even if they just shoot the doorway down, the canister will go off, stopping their entry for 20 seconds, giving you and your teammates time to react to that big goomer lurking outside the doorway. This would also stop the enemy team from rush plants, and again give your team that time to react to it, reposition, and be prepared. This is by far the best way to stop rushing attackers from taking you off guard, and adds a very nice layer of security to the defense. Plus, Goyo's gun is an absolute freak of nature, so it's really a massive win all around. So now that we know how to deal with aggression on both sides, what happens when you're on attack, have this plethora of trap utility, and are absolutely sucking because of it? Sometimes it can seem impossible to break out onto the site, or even just make any progress at all, especially with a ton of passive utility blocking your path. But luckily for you, there's 4 different operators with 4 different abilities to get rid of whatever it is you're struggling with. Except for anger issues. If you're struggling with that, you should probably stop playing this game. It's not helping. Basically what I'm trying to say is that between Flores, Twitch, Brava, and Ram, you can destroy anything you could possibly imagine. Except for reinforcements, obviously. Trap operators are really only good against fast-paced aggression, but as soon as you take a step back, use the time that you have in the round effectively, and just break all the traps first, then you'll be in a much better position to use the rest of your utility to take the site. If you're really struggling with it though, you can always ban Kapkan, and at least that way you're not getting nuked when you walk through a random doorway. Or you can instead use that beautiful ban phase to take out something even more annoying, like Clash. Now, I personally think Clash is not that great, and it's not very difficult to work around around, but if you're really struggling with an operator like Clash, then go ahead and clap her ass out of the game in the ban phase. Clash and the other shield operators can really mess people up, especially in the lower ranks, so if you suck against shield operators, don't worry because we're going to find the solution right now, starting out with our friend Clash. While Clash can be very annoying, she can be worked around fairly easily. The best way to deal with a Clash is to completely ignore her. Clash is an operator that only works if you engage her head on, but if you leave her alone and work different areas where she isn't, then she's completely useless. The longer the round goes and the more map control and destruction you do, the harder it is for Clash to stay safe from everything, leaving her exposed and therefore vulnerable. If you do try to take her out head on, you'll end up wasting a ton of utility, time, and potentially lose your life in the process from the defenders that are peeking off of her shield. So most of the time, it's just not worth it unless you're having Callie blast her shield constantly while you shoot her ankles. On the other side of things, you have big thick boy Monty and speedy boy Blitz, who both bring very different things to the table. Monty brings a ton of information and can actually just be a very strong pick for the attackers at the right times and on the right sites, but if you're coming into contact with a Monty main, they're going down. The easiest way to counter Monty is to echo him and get a teammate to shoot him at the same time. The shield will unextend the second the Yokai blast hits him, and your teammate can then fry him. Team play on a Monty is always going to be the best option, but if you're solo, there's still things you can do. The first is to run impact grenades. You can use the impact grenades when Monty unextends his shield to launch it to the side and take him out. If you aren't able to aim and shoot him quick enough, don't worry, because the impacts will still do a ton of damage when his shield's unextended. If his shield's extended though, they won't do too much damage, so save them for when he actually drops his shield. If you are still struggling against the Monty, just run Legion. Placing the goo mines in open areas makes it so Monty will have to slowly walk away from them and get to cover before he can take them out. That will deal a ton of damage, but then Legion also has the impacts to top it off. Between the two of them, this should get the job done, and if you're still struggling here, then you might be more than just sucking. You might be just fucking useless, okay? If you don't play Legion or you don't have him unlocked, start. Get him. He's awesome, especially after his recent buff. And then with Blitz, he has all the same weaknesses as Monty. He's just more fragile. What you really need to avoid sucking to the Blitz mains is information on where he's coming from so you don't get caught off guard by a lurking flash shield. To do this, you can barricade more doorways, spread traps out across where you're playing, or even just sit on a mute jammer around a corner. Mute will jam the shield's flash if Blitz is within range of it, so when they turn the corner to flash you, they'll press their ability button and nothing will happen, and you will happily melee their shield in that same time and kill the Blitz. The reality of it all is this: you can be proficient at the game solo if you do everything very, very well, but even then it's nowhere near as easy as playing with a team and working together to achieve smaller objectives, like working together to double team a Blitz in the basement, for example, or working together to take the site. If you suck at Rainbow Six Siege but you still want to win, just be a team player and forget about the fact that you suck in the first place. I believe in you. You got this.